First, I wanted to say thank you for this time, for this space. I cannot imagine that this book was an easy effort for you, but you talk about your life, you talk about your family, you talk about your experience in a way that you've seemed to have been able to zoom out a little bit and kind of look at the different things and kind of pull a lesson from it all. In the book, you talk about how you finally felt free to share your story, and I'm curious what freed you?
I think that, like you said, this story is my story for over the past 30 years, but I've been writing it for quite some time, and I found it really important, obviously, to use my voice and show that it matters to my daughters, because I never want them to feel afraid to share their truth, whether it's something I don't want to hear or someone else doesn't want to hear. They should feel proud to use their voice no matter the circumstances. So that was really my main driving force was, I can talk the talk, but I need to walk the walk, and I've got to be strong even when it's scary, because I have to, I don't believe that there's any better way to do that than to tell my truth and to use my voice.
Mm-hmm. And to be an example of that for your girls.
Exactly.
Right? Were there moments, before we dig into the book, but were there moments where you were like, I don't know if I should share this, or like, what they gonna say when they read this, or I'm definitely writing that one down. Were there moments like that for you?
Oh, of course. I think it's one of those things that I can't tell half truths, because then it's not genuine and it's not authentic. And as much as this is a book that will be shared with the world, this is my personal story, and I'm working on myself, and I'm really trying to grow, and I'm challenging myself to say things that I need to say, even if it makes another person uncomfortable. And I would want that for anyone, not just me. Yeah. But it's a personal growth challenge that I really am trying to do and hold myself accountable to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are moments where I was like, I don't know if I can say that, but it's what happened. It's how I felt in that moment. Mm-hmm. And also respecting who I was at 14, respecting who I was at 10 years old, and letting that little girl have a moment to share how she felt, because she never did.
Yeah. Jamie Lynn, I'm gonna be honest with you. You talk to me like a person, and even in reading your book, there are patterns and words that you use, phrases that you use. You sound like a person who has been in or is in some therapy. Has that been a part of your self-love, your discovery of yourself?
Yeah, I think that, growing up the way I did, I always was, had this way of always saying what people wanted to hear in order to protect people or to live my life in a way that was beneficial for everyone else. Yeah. So I used to go to therapy and just tell the therapist what she wanted to hear. Really? I was really good at that, and I don't know why I did that, and I don't even know if I realized I was doing that, but I was. So it took a lot of, it really just took...
soul searching.
It took a lot, and finally getting in there and telling someone, look, I'm doing these things that are not healthy, and this is how it really is, and this is how I really feel, was the first time that I said, I think I've been affected by things, and I think that it matters.
Yeah, and I'm trying to unravel some of that damage so that I can be healing.
So that I don't pass on these same patterns to my children.
That part.
Yeah.
And you talk about that. There is a whole section of your book that's called Breaking the Cycle. Mm-hmm. And when I first started reading it, I was like, this is her effort at correcting some of the things that she saw and thought were normal, yeah, or thought were this is how it should be or how it has to be, and now she knows it doesn't have to be. It was in that chapter in particular, it was one of those moments where I thought, had you had conversations with your family about what they might be reading in this book? Had you talked to them about any of the detail that you would go into?
Well, I think that a lot of them are obvious things that they know. If I'm writing a book about the truth, that's going to be there. But
say, listen, cat's out the bag. Y'all should know.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm gonna be talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's the truth, and I'm sharing my truth, and I think that the thing that was kind of nice is that I think everyone is in support of healing, and mm-hmm, that's more important than hurting feelings. And yeah, even if so, I have to use my voice, and that has to matter. So I can't continue to live my life pleasing other people and worried about everyone else. I have to at some point care about myself.
Talk to me about how you mustered the strength at 16, dealing with your pregnancy with Maddie, though your world is telling you this maybe needs to end a different way. And you say, no, I'm having this baby, I'm keeping this baby. How at 16 did you muster that?
I think, you know, being in a situation where it was innate in me to please everyone else. And whether it was the media or people around me that always controlled my narrative, that was safe for me. That's what I felt comfortable with. When I got pregnant, it was the first time that I stood up for myself and used my voice and said, this is the line for me and this is what I have to do. I think that, I don't know where the strength came from, but I just knew at that point, like every part of my being, I know that I have to stand up for myself. And if I can't do it for myself, I think maybe I loved my baby more than I loved myself, so I could do it for her, perhaps.
At 16?
I think love comes at you no matter what age you are, and I love that baby, so.
Love that baby. You also talk about a life-changing experience, you know, the ATV accident, how that really changed your life.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what changed for you.
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of my life I lived fear-based, and a lot of my issues fear-based of, you know, worrying about others and things that didn't matter. And then the worst thing that could actually be the end of the world for me happens. And then I'm given her back. And so at that point, your perspective changes completely. You start to decide on how you're going to live your life on things that truly matter. And it makes you a lot less scared when the worst has happened. And I just kind of stopped being scared of the world and realized that as long as I got my healthy babies at home, everything else is really not that big of a deal.
Yeah. One of the things that stuck out to me in this last couple of years, I remember, I think it was a post, something you posted saying, you know, while my support may not look like what you think it should look like, while it may not include a hashtag that you have jumped onto, know that my support for my family is real, and that it has never wavered. I'm curious, when you have a book that's called Things I Should Have Said, I'm just curious on the journey to uncovering those things, right? And who you might have said them to.
I think that it's not about, you know, just one thing in particular I should have said. I think that it's about using my voice for myself and advocating for myself when I should have. And then finally doing that, I just feel that it has been a very personal and private and vulnerable process, because I can't help the family I was born into.
Right.
But these are the dynamics that I was dealt, and I'm dealing with them. And everyone's process is going to look different. Everyone in this world's healing process is going to look different. Mine just happens to be a bit more private, and I think that, you know, I respect everyone's healing process, and this just happens to be mine.
Yeah. Talk to me about, you know, that everyone has, it seems like, and I want to say this with the utmost respect, but it seems like everybody has thoughts on your family and the situation that your family finds itself in. And everyone is going to have thoughts about the timing of this book.
Yeah.
And I'm curious from you specifically, how you work through that, what you say to them. You know, I know that it's your process and that it's an exercise of your voice, but there are, you know, that there are going to be people who are like, really? Right now?
Well, once again, every time that I've ever wanted to do something in my life, it's always seemed to have been overshadowed by something else. But this book is something that I've worked on for a long time, using my voice and crafting. And I've spent my whole life navigating when I should do this or when I should do that. And this was a deadline that was set over a year ago, and I'm sticking to it. And that's a part of my personal growth, not changing it to please other people and sticking to this. Yes, is the climate different at times? It's always going to be ever-changing. But for the first time, I'm sticking to something that was mine from the beginning and still is mine. And I didn't give in to that space of, well, this will make everyone else happier.
Yeah. I just want to read something to you from the book that I thought was like to me, it was one of the things that I was like, I cannot wait to have this conversation with Jamie.
Okay.
It was tough to read. I imagine it was very tough to write. But you said, no one protected me from the backlash of my older sister's struggles or prepared me for what our silence would cost. We were a tight-knit family torn apart by money, distorted truths, and undisclosed personal issues. And I want to know from you how you are reconciling some of this with your sister, with your father, with your mother, and now in your own families, but specifically you and your sister, how you are rallying around each other, now.
And again, like I said, it's a process that we're all going through and in different ways and shapes and forms, and I respect everyone's process. And it's silly, like, I think what I mean by that is that, I was always taught to be perfect and to pretend like things are perfect. Mm-hmm. And perhaps at times I should have been like, no, things suck right now, or I'm mad at this person right now, or whatever it is, because by not doing that, it only led to a perspective that necessarily was one-sided. And I mean, I know this is going to be silly to say, but like, I look at like the Housewives and how like Kyle Richards and Kathy and them like were openly honest about things that like when they didn't talk or they were angry about things or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's so understandable and so relatable. And I just wish that I wouldn't have been so scared to be honest about everything and anything, because now I think that I've learned that matters, and the truth is that all we have.
Yeah. I mean, it's so real. And I can appreciate the desire to finally share your side of the story, to mm-hmm. finally share your perspective. So I guess ultimately.
And again, I want to say that there's no sides to this. This was a situation of family that we all went through. We're all dealing with it, and all of them can be true at the same time. Mm. It's a painful process, and everyone's family has a painful process, but at the end of the day, everyone matters, and however we process this is really going to look different, but it should all matter that we're working through it.
Working through it, right? Like those are the key words, and together working through it. I want to just leave you with this, because I thought it was a really sweet part of the book, and I thought it was a really touching glimpse into the life of the Spears family. You talk about how much you loved Justin and swimming in the pool and having cookouts and stuff like that. But specifically about how he showed you, he was an example to you of like security, of a man who was generous mm-hmm. and loving and kind. And I'm just curious if that is something that, do you know that he knew that he was that in your life? I grew up as a baby as like kind of being like the little sidekick to the whole like, the Mouseketeers, whether it was that or my brother's football team or whatever it was. And so I loved all of them because they all treated me so well. And then, Justin was a big part of my childhood, and I always, he was just, I always felt included, and that was really nice. Mm-hmm. That was just, that was a fun time in my life. It really was. I'm going to ask you this, and I'm gonna preface it by saying, again, I want to be careful to ask this as most respectfully as possible. Mm-hmm. But have you ever thought about how life might have been different had they stayed together? Have you ever thought about what
the whole world thinks about that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that that's just kind of like a pop culture fantasy, but at the end of the day, what's meant to be is meant to be. So
I know that. I know that's right. I do want to say to you, I think that it is not easy to do what you are doing. Mm-hmm. I know that it came with its own sincere challenges, especially when you want to be honest and you want to be truthful. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you hope people know beyond a shadow of a doubt when they read through these books and they read through some of the difficult stories, and the funny ones and the good ones? Yeah. Is there something that you hope that everyone knows and understands when they close that final page on this book?
Just I hope they know and understand that my voice has always been something that is there, but I've always been afraid, and I'm just so thankful I get to share it and show my daughters that using your voice is powerful, even against circumstances that are unfortunate. I just think that it's so important for every person to use their voice. And if it inspires one person to speak up about something in their lives with their loved ones or whatever situation they're in, then I think it's important that we, all have the room and the safe space to do so.